The health of America's cities is a true barometer of the state of the nation. Today we begin the first in our series on America's cities with West Palm Beach Mayor Keith James, whose inspirational personal story matches the rising tide of the city he leads, and who knows more than ever our cities will help define the future. From Ballard Studios, broadcasting today from Tampa, Florida, it's 13th and Park.
The hard things that are necessary, we either do it or we'll pay the price down the road.
That often is missing in politics.
We have to solve everything.
It's a nightmare.
You and I can differ, but that doesn't mean you and I cannot be friends.
I have faith in the American people.
Those are the facts.
The Illuminati, right there. Aliens could have invaded and nothing would surprise me at this point.
We went from North Korea to M&M. That's a lot, man.
What's in this tea?
Well, Mayor, nice to have you from West Palm Beach, Florida today. It seems like a nearly busy environment behind you. I don't see many people in the seats there.
No. We just decided to shoot this in the chambers so that you would know that I really am the mayor.
These are incredible days, obviously, for your city. A lot of Americans, of course, understand that just across the bay is Mar-a-Lago with the eyes of the world upon you. How has that made your job both more interesting and more challenging?
I think it's made it more interesting because obviously I'm aware of the political climate that's there, but it's interesting in that I can't stop doing the job of serving the people of my city because of the change in political climate. So my advice to my team is that we need to basically be more flexible. We need to pivot when necessary, but more importantly, I think we need to be more sensitive to the data. We need to, in effect, take a stress test. How will that affect the programs, whether it's any grant funding, et cetera, so that we can do a level set on a worst case scenario. And at the end of the day, we need to figure out a path. We got to figure it out.
You brought that to the fore, Mayor, at the African American Mayors Association board meeting recently, where you said just that, where there's a new reality here. What kinds of things will mayors be confronting now? Maybe they weren't before. And are there as many opportunities in that as there are challenges?
Well, the things that we're looking at now is a direct threat to funding. So I think the first thing we have to do is to look at what's coming out with these executive orders and what policies are being adopted by these new cabinet secretaries and get a hard set on what the data will look like. But I think the second step is to take that data to allies in our own cities, sit down with folks who are friendly to us, but we are probably going to be friendly to the new administration, and basically say, listen, this is what is going to happen in our city. We need your help, Mr. or Mrs. Ally, to take our case, to make our business case to this new administration. And more importantly, and this is the point I made to my fellow board members, we cannot be, as Black mayors, we cannot be the face of opposition. It will adversely affect us personally, and it will adversely affect our cities. We cannot be the sole face of opposition in this fight.
What do you think, Mayor, might be the biggest challenge in terms of funding? Is there a particular area? You mentioned infrastructure. What would be like top on the list that would maybe most immediately affect West Palm Beach?
I think in West Palm Beach is going to be infrastructure dollars. We've got a huge park here, Curry Park. And I think we had about $16 million of federal funding that's in the pipeline. We have not received it yet. And we're right on the coast, so we have climate change issues. Whether climate change is still a reality or not, it depends. But we had some dollars for some of our streets that are subject to flooding. Hopefully that will still be in the pipeline, but we don't know. Another challenge that we have, Florida is becoming a red state. So you have what I call this epidemic of state preemption of municipal rights. In other words, states are basically trying to tell cities what they can or what they can't do. Gun control, for example. We, the cities, are preempted by state law from passing any ordinances, any resolutions that would impair the right of someone to carry guns. I'm a strong believer that the city closest to the people should have the power to determine how the people are affected. Airbnb is also another one. state law prohibits us from taking any action to impair or limit vacation rentals. Well, I know which neighborhoods would be most adversely affected by vacation rentals or Airbnbs more than anyone in Tallahassee, which is hundreds of miles away. But that's becoming a pattern. And I think what's happening is large industries are figuring they'll fight the fight at the state capitol and not have to go around to each and every city. But it is tough. And I think the citizens need to understand, and they need to watch this closely, that state laws are many times tying the hands of the municipal leaders. So that's another challenge. I'm not saying it is anything we give up, but running cities is more challenging than ever before. It really is.
Well, just as we see a reimagining of government on the federal level, maybe what you're suggesting, Mayor, is the same thing take place on the state and local level.
Well, absolutely. And I think that relationship between state government and municipal government has to be, as you say, reimagined. Listen, I don't want to get into a war with my state leaders, all right, because we need them as we're trying to do the better job for our citizens. But on the other hand, I want them to be realistic about the challenges that I, as the mayor of a city, am encountering as I try to provide services for my residents and the businesses who call West Palm Beach home.
So West Palm Beach is so dramatically changed in my experience today versus even a couple of years ago. You can just see it all over downtown, all over the communities. You now are given a new label, Wall Street South. I mean, you've had all this business and prosperity that's come your way. How are you managing that for the future so that everybody is at the table in West Palm and not just those who have moved there recently or are part of this new business and finance push?
No, that is a very good question. And it goes back to when I was campaigning for mayor back in 2019. Wow, it seems like a long time ago. I had developed at that time a motto, a phrase. My vision for the city was to make West Palm Beach a community of opportunity for all. This is in 2019, prior to COVID, and frankly, prior to the explosive and transformative growth that we're experiencing now. However, it remains my North Star. What that means in a word is that as we are experiencing this transformative growth, it is important for me to be intentional that the benefits of this growth extend to all four corners of my city. It's got to be inclusive or it's not going to work. And so as I have been talking to whether it's developers who are looking to do projects here or companies who are looking to move here, I have been very intentional about that point. And I'm not looking for people to come and build me pretty buildings. Be nice, pretty buildings are nice, but I am looking for people to help me build a community. And, West Palm Beach has had growth spurts in the past, but inevitably there were certain neighborhoods, certain communities that were left out and left behind. I don't want that to happen on my watch. So it requires intentionality. And I have to have these conversations with folks who are looking for the city's approval of certain projects up front. You don't want the growth to be just organic and to overtake you. I think you have to be very smart about anticipating the growth, looking to the stakeholders who are looking to grow, and be very honest with you about what you want it to do for your city.
How important is it, Mayor, that America's cities are healthy, prospering, and whole? I mean, how important is that to everybody in America?
Listen, cities are where the action is, if you will. That's where most of the jobs are. That's where most of the people live. But you can't have what I would call, we'll go back to Charles Dickens, a tale of two cities. You can't have uber wealthy in certain parts of your city and abject poverty in other parts of the city. Ultimately, that's not a sustainable model. If people do not have hope, they don't give a damn, and they're going to do things that will destroy your city or that will upset the apple cart. We have to, I believe, in all parts of our city, have something to which people can latch onto to give them some hope, whether it's the possibility of getting job training, whether it's the possibility of a job, or maybe one day I can get a better house or I can have a better apartment. We have to continue to infuse hope, even in those communities which have been hopeless for years, or else it won't work.
Public safety is obviously a big concern of people who live in cities. We see, unfortunately, the kinds of headlines cities don't want to make, like San Francisco and others who are still struggling against at least a perception of crime and lack of control. What lessons do you take, Mayor, from those other places and what you've done here in West Palm Beach and making public safety kind of priority number one?
It's been job one. And the lesson I learned as I look out over the landscape is if you fail to address that head on up front, it's destabilizing. When I campaigned in 2019, I said public safety is job one. I learned that lesson, quite frankly, when I was campaigning in some of these underserved communities. I would be in the neighborhood meetings and single mothers would talk to me and say, Mayor, we need more of a police force. I got my kids who are playing in the backyard. I don't want them to be the victim of a stray bullet. I've got my little girl who's looking out the front window and I don't want her to see open air drug sales. Please give us more security, more of a police presence in our neighborhoods. It's often perceived that public safety is kind of a majority community desire. Absolutely not. It is a desire. It is a need of those who are in the poorest communities. Now, they want the police who service them to be their allies and not adversarial. So we need to have a police force that is ethical and professional in their job. But don't get it wrong. These people require and demand safe, secure neighborhoods, just like any other population would. So to me, it continues to be job number one. The other point is you could build as many beautiful, gleaming, tall skyscrapers that you want. But if your community has the label of the murder capital of South Florida, and frankly, when I was running, Adam, for 3 years in a row, 18 murders in each of those years, a total of 54 in the 3 years preceding my getting elected to office. Many of those went unsolved. Given our population, that really made us the per capita murder capital of South Florida. Well, that's not really a good calling card for a developer that's putting up a beautiful building when people Google West Palm Beach and they see murder capital. So it's a two-way street, right? When you're talking to the business community, you have to continue to make the point, we got to get our act together from a public safety standpoint. And when you're talking to the residents of these communities, they also want safety and security.
How much did your background come into play here, Mayor? Did everything that you are and everything you're trying to do, you came from humble beginnings, literally to Harvard and Harvard Law. So how much has that personal journey informed you and motivated you in the journey that the city you lead is on as we speak today?
Well, you tap into your experiences, your life's experiences, right? Now, when I was a little kid in Wichita, Kansas, raised by a single mom, I had no idea I would be in this position now. But some of the same lessons that I learned back then still govern now. She had a rule that, and I was a latchkey kid, whenever I got home from school, I had to do my homework, I had to do my chores before I can go out and play. At the end of the day, that model, that philosophy of doing the hard stuff first before you can kind of reap the benefits, it has modeled what I do and how I govern the city. But also, I remember so clearly a couple of times when we would come home from church and our house had been broken into, and the feeling of violation that you have when you're the victim of crime at any point in your life, it is a very real thing. So when I say public safety is job one, that's because I have been in situations where I've been the victim. So lessons like that you kind of pick up along the way, now that I'm in this position, my mind harkens back to those experiences, and it just makes me want to work harder and do a better job. And I think, having grown up on the wrong side of the tracks, if you will, I'm empathetic to what that experience is, but I'm also optimistic because, having grown up on the wrong side of the tracks, here I am now mayor, and I can do some things about it. That's an only in America story.
Is that why things like affordable housing and homelessness, which are the challenges for every city literally in America, are such a high priority for you?
Well, that, and also, again, it goes back to the health and stability of my community. And that's, and people are homeless for different reasons, right? Whether it's an economic dislocation, whether it's a substance abuse problem, alcohol abuse, or mental health issue, before you can help them, you need to be able to address them where they are. That's why when I got elected, we only had one homeless outreach person who was a full-time employee of the city. Immediately within the first year, I hired 9 more. So we have a total of 10 full-time employees, and their job, they get paid just simply to go out and interact with the homeless and try to understand where they are. Again, it goes back to the stability of our communities to help the least of those, because if we are able to help the least of those, it helps build a more sustainable model. And so, yes, the empathy comes from my humble beginnings, but we also have to be smart and strategic. For every phone call, for every email I get about someone complaining about the homeless, I get an equal number of phone calls and emails saying we need to do more for the homeless. This is a very tough problem. But because the scale of the problem is so large, should not discourage us from seeking a solution to the problem. So we continue to try to work at it each and every day. There's no magic wand to solve homelessness, but we have to continue to look for solutions.
So if you were to look back years from now on your tenure as mayor,
Yeah.
what's the one thing, if you had to name one thing, you'd most want to be remembered for?
It goes back to my vision of making West Palm Beach a community of opportunity for all. It's not the number of tall buildings that we have. It's not necessarily the number of jobs that we brought to the city or the number of new roads or new projects. It really is, have I been successful in making this growth inclusive, right? So for every tall building, can I identify projects or programs that have helped hundreds of people along the way? And if at the end of the day, for as much transformative growth as we've experienced, if I can also point to how many lives have been changed as a result, I'll feel good about it.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, I wish you all the best moving forward. You've done a hell of a job down there. And it helps all of us to be able to see examples of leadership like yours.
Well, thank you, sir. And thank you for the opportunity to talk with you.